In previous episodes, we met 4 master impostors: Damara conned through competence, Abigail conned through narrative, Anna conned through appearance, Elizabeth Holmes conned through vision. Each of them found a different crack in the same system. But none of those 4 even came close to what Victor Lustig pulled off. Because Lustig didn't just find a crack. He sold a national monument he didn't own, twice. And the most disturbing detail isn't that it worked. It's that he found it so easy, he went back to try it again. Victor Lustig was born in 1890 in Hostine, a small town in Bohemia, then part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. His father was a tobacco merchant, even served as the town's mayor. It was a respectable, middle-class family with enough resources to give their son a high-quality education, and Lustig took full advantage of it. He spoke 5 languages fluently and evaded the law like a fictional character. He studied at the Sorbonne in Paris. He possessed a natural elegance, a sharp ability to read a room, and an emotional control that unsettled anyone trying to throw him off balance. But a conventional job never interested him. By his teens, he was already adopting aristocratic titles like Baron and Count. By 18, he had moved from picking pockets to swindling victims at card tables in Vienna. I find it fascinating that the signs were all there from the start. It wasn't rebellion, it was a choice, a deliberate decision that the rules of the world were only for those who couldn't see past them. And Lustig saw way past them. If you've never heard of Victor Lustig before this video, let me know in the comments, because this is one of the most extraordinary stories I've ever brought to this channel. Before the Eiffel Tower, Lustig had already created a scam that defines exactly who he was. He sold a small cedar wood box, equipped with complex rollers and brass dials. He claimed the device could copy $100 bills using radio waves. The scheme was surgical. He would put a real bill inside. The machine would work for hours. Finally, it would spit out a perfect copy. What the victims didn't know, the copies were real bills already hidden inside the machine. It would work a few times, then stop. By the time the victim realized the moneymaker was a trick, it was too late. Was just an expensive wooden box. Lustig was long gone. But here is the most brilliant detail. He chose victims who couldn't go to the police. People who were trying to participate in something illegal, counterfeiting. Reporting him meant incriminating themselves. I often think about the architecture of this scam. It's not just the fraud. It's the built-in protection against consequences. Lustig wasn't just tricking people. He was engineering situations where the victim, upon realizing they'd been conned, became an involuntary accomplice to their own silence. In 1925, Lustig was in Paris when he spotted a newspaper article. The piece discussed the maintenance problems of the Eiffel Tower. It was deteriorating, and the city was finding it increasingly expensive to maintain and repaint. The Eiffel Tower, built in 1889 for the World's Fair, was never intended to last more than 2 decades. It required frequent, costly repairs. Lustig read that article, and he saw an opportunity that no one else in the world would have seen. He researched the top scrap metal dealers in Paris. He sent out letters on fake government letterhead, claiming to be the deputy director of the Ministry of Posts and Telegraphs, requesting meetings that he promised would be highly lucrative. 5 men responded. 5 experienced, successful businessmen, accustomed to high-value deals. All of them went to the Crillon Hotel to hear a proposal from a man they had never seen before. At the meeting at the Crillon, Lustig made his pitch. The government had decided to sell the Eiffel Tower for scrap, in secret, to avoid a public scandal. This group had been carefully selected for their reputations as respectable businessmen. His speech included genuine insights about the monument's place in the city, how it didn't fit in with Paris's other great landmarks, like the Gothic cathedrals or the Arc de Triomphe. It was convincing because it was true. The Eiffel Tower had been hated for decades. Maupassant called it a skeletal pyramid. There were petitions to tear it down, and while he spoke, Lustig watched. He found his target in André Poisson, an insecure man who desperately wanted to climb into the inner circles of the Parisian business community. New to the city, eager to prove he belonged. Can you see what Lustig saw in that moment? Not a naive victim, A man whose ambition was greater than his caution. And ambition, in the right hands, is the easiest vulnerability to exploit. Poisson started asking questions. And that's when Lustig made what I think is the most genius move in history. Lustig hinted that, as a civil servant, he didn't make much money, and that choosing the buyer for the Eiffel Tower was a very important decision. Poisson got the hint. The bureaucrat was looking for a bribe. It was a scam within a scam. The bribe wasn't just Lustig being greedy. It was proof of authenticity. Because a con artist doesn't ask for a bribe. A corrupt government official does. Poisson paid the fake director $20,000 in cash, plus an additional $50,000 to ensure his was the winning bid. Lustig secured the $70,000 and in less than an hour was on a train to Austria. And then he waited. He waited for the story to leak to the papers, for his face to appear, for the police to hunt him down. Nothing happened. Lustig suspected that when Poisson realized he'd been had, he would be too embarrassed to tell the French police. His suspicions were correct. Poisson, humiliated, stayed silent. Share this video right now, because what comes next is the moment that defines who Victor Lustig really was. Any sane person would have disappeared, changed countries, changed names, forgotten Paris forever. Lustig went back. When he suggested selling the tower again to his accomplices a month later, they thought he was crazy. They targeted another group of scrap dealers and set up the same scam. This time, one of the businessmen got suspicious. He called the police. The story hit the papers. Lustig fled to the United States. But before leaving, he had sold the Eiffel Tower twice, in a matter of months, in the same city, using the same story. And in the US, his career continued. By 1935, he had accumulated 38 arrests. He built a criminal network that included underworld figures like Arnold Rothstein and even connections to Al Capone. But his most audacious move in America wasn't a business deal. It was when he escaped from a federal prison in Manhattan. He used a bedsheet as a rope, climbed out the window, pulled a rag from his pocket, and pretended to be a window washer while a crowd watched him from the street. When he hit the ground, he gave a polite bow to the public and walked away. In 1935, Lustig was finally captured. He had orchestrated a counterfeiting operation so vast it threatened to shake confidence in the American economy. A judge in New York sentenced him to 20 years in Alcatraz. He arrived at the world's most famous prison with his usual elegance. He dressed like a movie star, possessed a hypnotic charm, and spoke 5 languages. And before being caught, he had left a note in his cell after one of his previous escapes. A handwritten quote from Victor Hugo's Les Miserables. Not a confession, not a plea for mercy, a literary reference. I think that note says more about Victor Lustig than any scam. Because in that moment, running from the law with the whole world on his heels, he was still performing. He was still building the narrative of who he was. Dumara was the competent one, Abagnale was the narrator, Anna was the heiress, Lustig was the character. And even at the end, he never broke character. Victor Lustig died in Alcatraz in 1947. The New York Times reported his death without much fanfare. The most famous impostor in history passed from this world without drawing attention. Even in that, he was perfect. 5 impostors, 5 stories, 5 different ways of exploiting the same system. Dumara revealed that authority is a performance. Abagnale revealed that narrative can be more real than fact. Anna revealed that people believe in whatever looks extensive. And Lustig revealed something that still disturbs me when I think about it carefully. That greed shuts down judgment. That experienced, intelligent, successful men can be convinced to buy a national monument that is clearly not for sale, simply because they wanted to believe the opportunity was theirs. Poisson wasn't tricked because he was naive. He was tricked because he wanted so badly to belong to a world that wasn't his yet. Would you have suspected Lustig? I don't know. And what scares me isn't the answer. It's how fast the doubt creeps in. If this series is changing the way you think about trust, authority, and how vulnerable we are when we want something badly enough, share this video. There are more stories like this coming, and in the next episode, a name you probably know.